Well. Welcome back to Krown's Crypto Cave, getting ready for a very early start on the second day of July from an overcast and rainy Helsinki, Finland. Very much needed by myself, as can stop the sweating. Anyways, plenty to talk about today, especially with regards to traditional markets, so I want to make that a big focus of today's video. Of course, Bitcoin will be there as well. And before I get lost in the explanations here, on the Krown trading app, we do see that the open interest is actually once again above 1.9 billion with a B, which is very interesting because we are still caught within the medium time frame range and the higher term time frame range as Bitcoin has really failed to break down. And the longer that Bitcoin goes on here without breaking down, up till like the next week and a half, the more and more likely that this does turn around to be actually bullish. And looking at traditional markets right now, well, that would look like a very interesting proposition. So we're going to talk about that in detail today. But before I forget, also all programs are on sale for a nice little midsummer sale for the Europeans out there, or a 4th of July sale. If you're an American as well, or if you just want to celebrate it as well, all good, and no code is needed. But I want to be very direct in saying this, that if you are the type of person ever considering getting into one of these programs, especially the TA program or the options program, make sure that you have the time to invest in it, because if you do not have the time to invest in it, you're not going to be able to make the most out of it. And it's not just that it's a very long program, of which they're, like 35 hours long. I think the TA program is probably close to 40 now. But also on top of that, you have to realize that it's probably going to be a long time before, once you go through the actual program and then digest the info and then incorporate it, depending upon where you start from. And, different people are different. For myself, it probably took about 1.5 to 2 years. Some people a little bit on the faster end. Some people, mostly I find around 1 year. 1 year to 1.5 years typically. So keep that in mind. If that's not you, all good, no hard feelings. The YouTube channel, the YouTube content is there for you for free, and it's all good. And I strongly suggest to make the most use out of that, because realistically, a lot of the things that are in the program are also discussed here as well. Anyways, the Neophyte program, obviously a lot less incorporated. It is more so geared towards complete beginners, and while there's a lot more that I could say, I think it's best left said on these videos right here. So if you are interested in it, definitely check the videos out, because it'll actually explain what's involved in the curriculum and everything, so then you can directly decide for yourself if it is for you or not. So again, at the end of the day, you're an adult, you make an adult decision, and yeah, that's all good. Just wanted to make sure that that's always at the forefront, because, well, I mean, if you're not gonna be able to get the most value out of it, then what's the fucking point? On top of that, subscriptions. In the subscriptions tab, we now have a 3-month Jewel package for a bit of a discount, 20% off. And also under the partners tab, we do have Mornfall releasing his PineScript Mastery, which is essentially a top to bottom program on understanding how to program your own indicators within PineScript, which is native to TradingView platform. So check that out. Again, videos accompanying all of these, explaining them in detail, in depth. Anytime that you ever consider any one of those, make sure you watch the videos first. If after that you're still into it, then all good. Anyways, let's go back to the Krown trading app right here. And what else do we have? Is there anything else to update from the Krown trading app? Not really. Oh, before I forget as well, Mornfall, for all of the Jewel program people, started his own YouTube channel, which I am really happy about. And he will field questions in the Jewel channel, in which he will answer in video format for the Jewel people specifically. And at a later date, usually a week after he records that one, he'll release it to the public. So even if you don't have the Jewel, you'll be able to watch that on YouTube. There is a link in the description below. So yeah, again, take advantage of it, because those things actually do retain relevancy, especially on the higher term time frame. So fair enough. Okay. All right. What else do we want to look at? Bitcoin dominance still hanging around between that 64.5% to 65.5% zone. Now a lot closer to the bottom side of that. Perhaps today is going to be worth taking a look at. Fear and greed index stuck at 42 once again, a little bit more towards the bullish side. So I think right now would be a great time to go on to traditional markets and see what's going on over here, as I want to follow up on yesterday's Nasdaq analysis. And yes, we did hit the top side of that last high and actually surpass it obviously as well. Or actually, did we? 310, yeah, I think so. Yeah, 310, new highs. So yes, the target was met, and then this I do look at as a confirmed breakout to the upside. And because this is an ascending triangle, essentially, I do believe that we can make a measure move off of this. I'm going to do or I guess we've already done it right here, which is pointed towards this next liquid zone, which is actually lined up can you even see this? Oh yeah, you actually can't even see it because my dumb fucking face is in front of it. Let me. I fucking hate my rat face. Anyways, we do have a measure move pointed up towards about 10,700-ish region, which is around that next Fibonacci extension if you're making a bearish retracement, actually. So, you know, while there's not really too much to really be done in the way of like defining targets when you are in a blue sky breakout, essentially, which Nasdaq is at new all-time highs, you can use extensions to decent what's the word that I'm looking for, success from what I found. But usually what I'm looking for to kind of denote like the next major top in traditional markets is some sort of bearish divergence on a higher time frame, nothing less than a daily for sure. And right now, are we constructing bearish divergence? It probably will put some in because the last high that we put in was over here, and that's all the way down at around $10,000. So at some point it will be building, but right now it's trending and still going, and looks all good to me. Daily Stokes are back up and at 'em, and this is a very strong read right here. This is essentially what I refer to when I'm looking at Bitcoin on some of the higher term times. I'm going to say that this actually is technically usually a good thing in traditional markets, but in Bitcoin does act a little bit differently, although over time I suspect we will see the same sort of things going on over there, especially considering that there does seem to be a pretty damn strong correlation between Bitcoin and traditional markets on the macro scale, most importantly and most notably. Looking at daily RSI, like I said, bearish divergence very likely does form at some point, but it's not in the cards right now, as long as we are, well, especially trending and above, and especially above this area right here, the breakout trend line right around about 10,150-ish region. If you want to be a little more conservative on this, which I do think is appropriate in this range, just because this is rather strong price action, I would be using this area right here, which is more so around 10,100-ish region. Could put a nice little liquid zone right there and manage off of that. But overall, as long as we're above there, I do look for the measure move to be hit. And keep in mind that this one's still viable over here that we identified a couple months ago, this inverted head and shoulders, as you can see, which does point north towards about 1100, which is actually the one spot 414 extension. All the way up there. So generally speaking, I understand that it looks crazy and it sounds crazy, but I'm still bullish on traditional markets. I actually watched a video from that guy, Dave Portnoy, yesterday, and he's great. He's hilarious, and I totally understand why everyone hates him, but I also think he's so fucking entertaining that you can't hate him. You have to love him, and and you know what? If he's gonna save the fucking stock market, be my guest, man. Be my fucking guest. Jesus Christ. If you haven't seen his videos, you actually have to see them because they are absolute comedy gold. And he he just says some funny shit, man. Anyways, okay, cool. All right. So yes, if things were to break back down below 10,100, I would be a little bit concerned, and I would look for a return back down to this liquid zone down here, somewhere around 9,800-ish region. But for right now, I don't really see that as likely. I'm looking for historical volatility percentile to expand from here. Looking at the moving average on this, it is maintaining a nice positive slope. So I do think that we're going to hit into a greater expansion phase, and that likely comes with some upside fun action. Looking at the weekly, even took out last week's. I mean, that's phenomenally bullish right there. Taking out last week's high, especially on a shooting star dildo. That got bought right back on up. I mean, that's a little bit of a trap, and then very fast the other way. That's fucking textbook. Institutional order flow dynamics at play, bringing it back down below that level, given the formation, or sorry, the candlestick formation, dildo formation, people something to do, and then shoving it right back in their face, which I find more and more as time goes on. That's actually one of the least useful tools in my arsenal. So I actually don't really trade those anymore. Anyways, it also seems to have some sort of like very bad hit rate on Bitcoin land as well, unless if it's on a higher time frame. Usually a weekly would be a higher time frame, but in this case right here, not working at all. And I suspect that E-mini futures for SPY are going to be moving up in the same direction as well. This is looking pretty damn good to me, maintaining above all major moving averages right here, which more importantly all have a positive slope here on the lower periods, and it's looking like this is just a little bit of an accumulation zone. So I expect expect to see some sort of accumulation formation on a lower time frame. And actually, what do you know? On the 4-hour right here, it looks to me like we do have a nice ascending triangle in the making. So drawing it out right here, am I looking for a resolution to the upside right here, right now? Maybe not. It has a lot of space to fill out. I think that we can trade sides within this formation for a little bit more time, maybe for like another week and a half or something like that. And then I kind of look for a resolution. But seeing as the strength in Nasdaq is just bringing it to new all-time highs upon new all-time highs, perhaps it does take that leg up sooner rather than later, but the resolution point on it is pretty damn what's it called, clear. Man, I've drank a lot of coffee this morning, but for some reason my speech actually still not doing all that well. So what I do is actually use this liquid zone right here. A couple ways of doing this one, but any sort of a 4-hour total closure, very likely above 313.5. Very likely does initiate that next move to the upside to the prior high at about 330-ish region. However, I do believe that you could also use the wick high of what we saw on the 23rd of June. Or is that the high or is that the high? Actually, no, the high's right. Well, they're about three quarters off. No, the high from 23rd of June. Yeah. 314.5 and 3/4. Anywhere above there, and I look for extension to the prior high. Coming in from, 9th of June, somewhere around 322-ish region to 323-ish region. And that's going to make the weekly look really, 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 really good at that point. And I would keep an eye on this gap over here at about 333, which I'll actually mark off right now as well. Very, 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 very likely we'll see a nice run up there if those conditions were met for the upside breakout. And I'm curious to know if the measure move off that ascending triangle would actually correlate with that as well. Man, I have a sneaky suspicion it might actually. I'm going to do a very bad drawing of this once again. Don't freak out if this is not perfect. Oh, what do you fucking know? Sometimes that TA hocus pocus bullshit actually works. And this is looking better and better to me. And more importantly, looking at the daily right here, the daily had a chance to break down and really undo the death cross between the green and the purple. That's 55 and 200. Instead, it got bought back on up. Moving averages maintain a positive slope, gets back above all major moving averages more recently. That's a higher low. On top of that, hidden bullish divergence between this point and this point. And realistically, I'd be looking for this to go back into the 320s. Looks good to me. Overall, I'm curious what Microsoft looks like right now. Yep, new all-time highs. What do you fucking know? Oh my god. Market's mostly being held up by Microsoft, Apple, and the other leaders. But those two most notably, Apple looking equally as powerful as well. Very, 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 very girthy green dildos. In fact, Microsoft a little bit more powerful. Did make new all-time highs in the last run. Apple did not. But the markets, the way that the markets work in traditional land is more so in rotations. So these are your strong stocks going right now. After that, it would be indicative. Someone asked this question yesterday, but it would be indicative that the overall cycle might be losing a little bit of steam. But then you're going to get your mid caps to kind of rally, then you get your shitcoin stocks to rally, and then you either repeat the process again healthily, or major stop gets put in, and we get to play at some downside. But for right now, still looks good to me to the upside, and kind of the same areas relevant here. For Microsoft as we do see for Nasdaq, in fact, except long term, there's really no reason to be bearish on something like this from a weekly perspective, as long as we're above this 195 pivot right here, just using some bad eyeballing horizontals. Going down to a daily does look a little bit potentially more toppy to me on the daily. However, it will be constructing something resembling bearish divergence very likely if it fails to make new highs on RSI soon. But for right now, this is still trending, and I'm sorry, it's actually not due to the RSIs. Or sorry, let me rephrase that. Jesus Christ, man, really low on this coffee is not serving me well today. Definitely addicted. Anyways, my point is, sorry, I got that backwards. It's the price action. We haven't confirmed a high here just yet. So as it stands right now, still in the process of trending, so I don't really see that as actionable. It is potentially constructing some, but for right now, still in the process of trending, just like Nasdaq. So I don't really look at that as actionable at all. And the only way that you really create a local high right here is if we come back down below about $200, a nice psychological level as well. and it at the very least close it daily down there, and then we'd have a little bit of bearish divergence to be dealing with right here. Probably initiate another move down towards the last prior low on the daily, but other than that, it's difficult to get too bearish on something like this as long as it's above the 21. I'm curious what the Bollinger Bands are showing right now. Okay, yeah, it's just kind of walking up the median. Very nice, very nice actually. It looks like a very similar chart from a historical volatility percentile perspective as well as we saw in Nasdaq. Okay, cool. I suppose now would be a good time to go check out Bitcoin. Bitcoin is not as easy of a chart to read as ones that we just looked at in traditional, but because we do see correlations on the macro, it really does make me geared towards the fact that bears, they are on the clock here. If they do fail to bring this one down, I mean, I would even argue like by the end of this week, very likely we're just going to see things float up with traditional markets, and the strength in the world markets is going to overflow into Bitcoin, but at least letting it get back up to about 9,500-ish region. Daily on Bitcoin right now, from a momentum oscillator perspective, is heading back up. We did bounce off the bottom side support of this, like we spoke about yesterday, and now look for another test potentially of the top side resistance here. So got a little bit of space to work with. While historic volatility percentile is incredibly low, I know that I keep harping on this, but the fact that this has stayed so low for so long, only once hitting into even double digit, a 10 read right here yesterday, sorry, not yesterday, but the 30th of June, once within the last almost 3 weeks of period now, and quite literally the moving average on this is not just negatively sloped, it's literally it's not just touching it, but it's actually flattened completely. Which you really don't see all that often. I mean, usually it's like very stark moves, but that does suggest that the breakout or breakdown from this is going to be phenomenally violent. Meaning, if we do break to the downside, very likely looking at multi-$1,000 move, very likely $2,000 move, potentially plus. To the upside, that's actually a lot more of an interesting proposition, just because upside is a lot more open-ended, but 11,000-ish region would be very likely. Still in line with the measure move from that ascending triangle that we saw, which, if you are going to be bullish on this, I suppose that you would be looking at this as a higher low, which it technically is right now, of course. So the problem is that we do have a series of lower highs here, right here, but am I going to be, should I be bearish on Bitcoin if I'm essentially bullish on traditional markets? No, I should not be. However, do have to trade the asset in front of you. So Bitcoin's failure to kind of follow through here denotes its relative weakness in comparison to traditional markets. And again, think of it as like striated laders in the way that different segments of the market rally together. The strong ones rallied first, then the semi less strong, then the next one less strong than that, all the way down to the shit coins of stocks, and wherever Bitcoin kind of relates in that area is going to be very enlightening to see how the market is interpreting it as of right now. Now compare that with something like gold, which gold is actually still acting relatively good. Looking a little bit short-term toppy here, maybe plays out some downside back down to like 1750, but overall this chart still looks, well, almost hit the $1,800 target. Almost. Monthly still very much bullish. Maybe a backfill back down to like 1730, 1740-ish region, but I do think that would be an opportunity. We pretty much did hit that area actually. It's looking good. I still think that it's looking good though. I would actually be looking for a move to 1830-ish region, and then probably play out a lot of sideways and maybe consolidate down for a bit. But overall, long term, still good. Compare that with Bitcoin, which just really has been stuck in the same consolidation for the last almost 3 months now. Is that right? Going back to early May, so we have May, June, now working on July, so a little bit over 2 months. So, technically speaking, I probably would be looking for Bitcoin to head back up here, just related off of that. But I would be lying if I didn't say that on the lower term timeframes, Bitcoin does look like, or at least on the lower term timeframes, it is a little bit under pressure here, as long as we're below the 200x benchmark average. Because as long as we are below the 200x benchmark average on the 4-hour dildo timeframe, the 4-hour death cross is still viable, technically speaking. And not only that, it's the same liquid zone that we were speaking about yesterday, kind of leading into that next move up to the 9,500 plus region right here. So it is an interesting area from multiple perspectives, and I would be looking for still the same things as yesterday, essentially. with regarding a 4-hour delta closure above 9300-ish region. And it does seem like the more conservative way of looking at this is the right way to be looking at this. If it does close a 4-hour above 9300-ish region, I would be looking for extension up to this blue box, which is actually a little bit north of 9500 in the 9530-ish region to 9580-ish region. Probably a short-term pullback from there, and then we get to play the game of, is Bitcoin putting in a lower high or not? The more important thing to know right now is that if Bitcoin does get back above this area, it very likely will, at the very least, test this prior high right here. And at that point, this is no longer, you know, in the process of creating a downtrend, because we still just don't have those lower lows as far as the greater formation goes on like the 2-day, 3-day, and higher term timeframes than that. It's only up to a daily right now that we actually do have a little bit of that emerging. So could this be a bear trap, you know, on the lows? Yeah, absolutely. Until we actually fully and formally break down below the same areas that we spoke about coming into this week, you know, there's no continuation to be had. And this, on the shorter term timeframes, if you are Bula-ish, you're probably looking at this as some sort of fucked up Quasimodo inverted head and shoulders, which you can make the argument for it with a double left shoulder and a double right shoulder. That does happen, absolutely. And funnily enough, what would be the measure move on that? You know, pointed back up towards the next area. Oh, what do you know? Right there, smacked or at the top side of that blue box territory. So very likely would imply that we would test a prior high, then we no longer have declining tops, and that would be overall good for the Bitcoin Bulas and make this overall formations, you know, look a lot better. What's even more important about that is that it would really help out, or sorry, what's more important about that is the same thing to the upside that we've been saying for the last couple months until we actually close dailies or 12 hours above this region right here, even 4 hours above 9,900 and especially 10,000. It's still, you know, caught within the greater long-term range, and it makes it difficult to get excited about. But of course, anytime that you're more close to that, just like more recently, we're closer to the downside resolution, that's the more interesting proposition, of course. Okay, cool. All right. Let's see. What are oscillators doing on these lower term timeframes, or do we have any divergences to be aware of? Yeah. So by the way, the hidden bearish divergence potential that we were looking at yesterday obviously did not play out. Well, to be fair, it did actually, because we did have a move from, you know, 92.50 down to 90.50, a $200 move. So fair enough. And that would actually be a good pivot going on from here on and forward now. So actually I take that back. It did play out. Although I was expecting more. I was expecting down to about $9,000 base. We didn't get that move, obviously. But now that 9,100-ish region does become a decent enough pivot, kind of regarding a move back down to the prior lows, somewhere down around about 8,700-ish region, which would be the downside resolution overall. So all those things work together. But right now, you know, it's obviously a lot closer to resolving to the upside here. Looking at 4-hour Stokes, we do see that they are rather erect to the upside. And more importantly, let's see what the reverse Stochastic indicator cross would show. And we maintain, not we, but Bitcoin maintains upside momentum as long as it's closing 4-hour deltas above 9,200-ish region. What's interesting about that? Well, that's essentially where the low side of this short-term consolidation is happening right here. So you can look at this structure as a nice little management point. And if Bitcoin does take it out to the downside, I would look for a return back down to actually 9,100-ish region. And that would be catalyzed by a move essentially down below 9,200, especially a closure on a 2-hour or 4-hour delta below there very likely does it. By the same token, to the upside, well, I think that we already covered that, but essentially it would suggest that the upside is still, in progress as long as we are closing those above 9,200-ish region. That's my point right there. 3 hours looking good as well. 3 hours showing 92.40 for momentum remaining to the upside. Again, getting up there too, but it's very likely to get another test up towards that 9,300-ish region. If it can close above there, then yes, I would look for that extension. Another, what was it, like $300 or $250. Again, tight margins here. So when it comes to that, I would rather trade options than spot. But for the more aggressive traders, well, enough edge, I suppose. Although it's not financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor. Looking at the 2-hour, showing that momentum actually remains to the downside with as long as price action is closing below 92.50. So I do like the correlation between those and the 4-hour, and hourly showing 92.50 for upside momentum to be regained here as well. By the way, going to get an hourly golden cross as long as we are healthily above 92.25. Very, very nice. So we're going to the fucking moon. Just kidding, but it does look like it's kind of setting up rather well here, and like I said, more sideways will naturally make me less bearish here. more sideways without breaking, of course, below about 9,000 on a daily closure. Still have not had that closure below 9,000. I do think that I do think that's very possible I'll be wrong on my analysis last week of looking at 90.50 closure to the downside as a resolution. It's more so 9,000. And again, regarding the strength in traditional markets, it does make it a little bit difficult for me to be bearish here. More importantly, we do see that on the daily, momentum oscillators will remain pointed to the north side as long as we're above essentially that prior low that we set in again on 26th of June, which is essentially where the 89 exponential moving average is, that cyan moving average right here. Let's go to the 2-day and 3-day. Let's see what's going on right here. 2-day and 3-day are interesting as well. 2-day momentum will go back to the upside with any sort of a 2-day total closure above 94.50ish region. And guess what? We do close one tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and that would actually be constituted as a rejection of the bearish control zone, which from a 2-day Stochastic perspective is pretty damn good. And also historical volatility percentile is actually very fucking low on the 2-day as well at a 4 read right now. So all, suggesting a pretty severe move along the same vein as the daily. Looking at the 3-day, 3-day is just kind of gliding around here aimlessly, showing momentum going back up to the upside above 96.50. That is interesting because that is your last prior potential lower high right here on the 3-day. And same sort of thing here as well, would constitute a rejection of the bearish control zone, although I believe we just got a new one. Yeah, we did just get a new one, so we don't get a new one until 5th of July. And do we have potential hidden bullish divergence here on 3-day RSI? Depends if you consider this a low or not. I suppose for right now it does work as a low, and yes, that would imply move very likely back up to 9,500ish region. So fair enough. Boodlaws do have a few things to be looking at here. So nice. And of course, as we've been speaking about, the monthly very, 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 very important. The monthly closed very well yesterday, or was it yesterday or the day before? Whatever it was, on the turn from June to July. And while it doesn't necessarily say that the downside is over or it's not available, I actually do still think that Bitcoin could very easily get a move down to the low 8,000s region, around 8,100ish region, maybe even 7,500. To me, the way that the monthly set up, it's very likely going to be an opportunity, or at least I look at it as an opportunity, not a long-term macro reversal. I think that the way that the monthly closed is actually going to really negate the talks of Bitcoin, putting in like a long-term descending triangle here with a base somewhere around like 3,500 and declining tops from 14,000, 11,000, and then whatever we have going on right here. And technically, we actually didn't even close on a higher high with comparison to this one right here. Although I think that's really it's really cutting it a little bit too close overall. But monthly momentum oscillators will remain to the upside as long as Bitcoin price action closes next month above 88.50, which is healthily above the 10 simple in 21 as well. Same thing on monthly RSI, which is bouncing off of right now the exponential. Of course, it's a long month to go, but what I've been keeping a keen eye on and following for the last few years is this accumulation distribution indicator, which I only look at a couple times a month. Ball is actually working on a new one for me, and I suppose by extension us, which is pretty damn cool. But for now, only have to use or only can use this tool right here. And a couple things of note. Well, first and foremost, we do have this trend line forming across all of our major lows going back to July 2015, more recently January 2019, and even more recent than that, May 2020. So that's that low right there, that low right there, and then that low more recently right here. And more importantly, on top of that, I really only care about the slope on this, and it has been confirmed that from July to June, we do maintain a positive slope. And anytime that we've had a slope change, that's actually been it. So I do look at this as long-term actually still good. But again, because we're dealing with big numbers here, like large numbers, Bitcoin can come all the way down to, low 8,000, even low 7,000. And I would look at that as an opportunity. So it's not just like I blindly get Bula-ish right now, putting my girthy green dildo into this market. No. Still, I still think that there's a serious threat of a breakdown, even on the daily right here. I don't think that this is all said and done just yet. It's just the strength in traditional markets is making it very difficult for it to break down right now. So Perhaps it does just kind of go sideways here aimlessly for for an extended period of time. We actually don't play out any sort of formation from this, and we form something completely new. I think that that's very possible, and that actually be an extremely strong sign of strength long term if that were to happen. But that would require time to the tune of another few weeks, actually. Very, 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 very likely. So, well, hold on. Would that be about right? Let's see. What would this kind of look like if that were to happen? From a pattern trader's perspective, yeah, you do actually have plenty of space here. It would look something a little bit more like this, with an apex coming in October 2020, resolution point likely in middle of August. So that could be what the Bulaws are looking at as well. Requiring quite a bit of patience for something like that, but it is in the cards, absolutely, especially with the way that we kind of bucked the lows right here. Here's what I do want to show, though, a counter to that. And again, if Bitcoin does break below, especially on a daily closure below 9,000, I do strongly think that Bitcoin would work its way down to 8,550 and hit at least the 8,150-ish target down here at the 382 Fibonacci retracement. And depending upon how the reaction is there, I think that we could see extension to the mid 7,000s at the 0.5, also a nice historical area here as well. So I'd keep an eye on that. Still, it's still in the cards, just like the upside is, because we've failed to see any sort of legitimate fall through as of right now. So it's still kind of anyone's game right now, with a slight tint to the upside due to the strength in the world markets. But what I also want to show is something kind of damning on the other side, which is actually, hey, fuck off, trading view. Sorry, is GBTC right here, which GBTC is very obviously bearish. I mean, we have a complete and fully confirmed reversal off the last major high. Of course, GBTC is essentially like a pink slip shit stock for Bitcoin. It trades OTC, but it does seem to actually have quite a few quite a bit of inflow. As a lot of people are kind of like passing around the good old meme right now that GBTC owns like some, I don't know, what was it, like 10%, 18% of the Bitcoin circulating supply for the last year, something like that, which is pretty significant. However, at the end of the day, I think that it's very important to reflect upon, or at least meditate on the fact that if you're going to be trading an asset, you got to trade the asset in front of you. It's fun to look at the corollaries, just like I look at traditionals if I'm going to be trading Bitcoin. But if Bitcoin makes a move in the other direction, you can't fight that. You can't fight that. Your P&L is marked off of Bitcoin if you're trading Bitcoin. It's marked off of GBTC if you're trading GBTC. So if you ain't trading GBTC, is this like super actionable? It has been in the past, but we also have seen some weird stuff here as well. Not good enough for me. However, if I am just going off of GBTC, we do see a full-on. It's not just full on reversal. It's a continuation of a long-term trend, putting in these lower highs over the course of the last few years. So it would actually imply that we do have another move down to the 8 spot 60 cent marker down here, which would be akin to that lower $7,000 region, in fact. So that would be kind of like the counterpoint to Bitcoin. Of course, GBTC very strongly correlated with Bitcoin, although this tool does need an update. This is not going to be super accurate, but it's the best that I have right now because I haven't gotten an update from Bolly on this one. However, this is essentially the correlation coefficient and R-squared measurements for GBTC versus Bitcoin. As you can see just from looking at the chart right here, seems very similar to me, but if we want to prove this mathematically, of course, correlation coefficient showing 0.92 and a half. Simple moving average on that shows actually even a little bit higher than that. R squared phenomenally high as well at spot 8.5. So that does fit rather well, and we have seen GBTC lead to the downside in the past. So seeing GBTC break to the downside first here would make sense if this is still going to be viewed as a leading indicator. But what I can say going into the trading day today is that I would not be bearish on GBTC if it actually even just takes out yesterday's high at 997. I'd look for it to pop back up to the 21, somewhere back around 10 spot 37s, 10 spot 38 region. And play out another bounce from there. However, for as long as it's below the 200 simple, especially on a closing basis, pressure is down with targets down in the 877 region, and if that fails, 835 region. Okay, what else do we want to talk about? How long is this video? Too long, man. Too fucking long. Sorry about that. Let's see. Is there anything else that I want to get around to? Maybe some forex. Maybe a little bit of forex. Let's go look at euro dollar really quick. Curious how this one's doing. Euro dollar putting a nice higher low right there. Actually, let's see what the weekly looks like. Weekly looks like it's going to give another try towards the 113 region, but I still think that this is likely putting in a major high here, actually. It's Dixie that we actually want to be tracking, and Dixie coming back down, probably going to swipe the lows once again at 96.5, 96.44. But I do think that it's actually going to put in a low either there, or if it does actually fail that region, then perhaps we could look down towards the 93.5 region. But long term, I'm very bullish on Dixie, and I suppose by extension, I'd have to be bearish on most U.S. dollar parents, I guess. Yes, bearish on the parents. Yes, that would make sense. I'm thinking about it backwards there, but yes. Okay, let's go check out some shitcoins, see what they're doing right now. Short term, this does look bearish though, to be fair. Let's see where's my shitcoin index. Let's go to Bitcoin dominance. Actually, we could look at the shit perps and whatnot. I think we're in for some more sideways within this 64.5% to 66% region long term. Short term, or not even short term, but weekly more side. I don't really see anything happening here. Short term down. Short term is down for sure. I shouldn't say for sure. I really dislike that sort of certainty in a game that you can't really be certain on. But back down to our rising bottoms right here. Very, 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 very likely. Let's go look at like an actual shitcoin. Shouldn't say that. Litecoin would disagree. Litecoin says we want continuation of the downside. Litecoin looks absolutely abysmal here, putting a descending triangle on the lows and year upon year of lower highs and lower lows. Wow, strong, powerful. Buterol is bullish. Buterol is bullish. I'd be looking for a move back up towards 0.028. What about XRP? Terrible. Absolutely. But perhaps this is why the Bitcoin dominance chart is so difficult to read and why it's mostly flat. And I would be looking at it as mostly flat. I think that we are seeing bifurcation in the altcoin sphere. Some alts are looking very good. Most alts are looking absolutely terrible. I think another one, actually, usually the one that I typically pick on, Cardano is looking pretty damn good as well. Yeah, we did hit the 1100 or the 1050. Yeah, the 1050 target. Probably going to bounce. Probably going to back off that area and come back down and fill around 950. And then I want to see the weekly close, but the easy target has been met on that one. Now we're kind of in line with the long-term downtrend, so I would actually be very careful in this region here. I need to see the weekly close now in order to know, or not know, but in order to have another bias on that. But yes, the upside target was met, so nice. Good job, Cardano's. Happy for you, man. Don't spend it all in one place. Link BTC looking phenomenal. I'd be looking for new all-time highs on this. Ascending triangle on the top. Very, 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 very nice. Weekly Stokes, nice and healthily pointed to the upside. Weekly RSI, very healthy here. This is by far the best chart in cryptocurrency land, by far. Unless, well, I haven't seen all the charts, to be fair, but best chart that I've looked at out of like 5. Let's go look some indexes for shitcoins. Would be bullish on mid perp actually. Would actually, I think I'd actually be bullish on shit perp as well. What about altcoin perp? Altcoin perp I'd be bearish on. This is very strange. Okay, so there's obviously bifurcation going on. So perhaps this is actually the time that we're going to see that. Very interesting. Okay, that's actually this is actually really the first time that we've seen sustained for a while that some altcoins are moving completely opposite to other altcoins for prolonged periods, not just fucking day, not just fucking hour, but prolonged periods, like months actually. So pretty cool. All right, let's go check out what about Mr. Buterol versus dollar. Looks like he's gonna get another stab back up to 243.775. Yeah, daily looks good, and this makes me again err on the side of the upside here. Bitcoin failing to break down over the weekend was that's looking very likely as a trap now. What about Litecoin? Same thing here though. This is not. I mean, do I think that Litecoin's going to break down if Bitcoin doesn't? This makes it difficult. For the last few years, we've pretty much seen most of the market move together most of the time. Right now we're not, especially the leaders as well, which usually included, like Bitcoin, Butterol, Litecoin, and then a couple of shifting altcoins here and there. But we're not seeing that right now. We're seeing bifurcation. So actually, while I do think that Ethereum's looking good here, do I kind of put Bitcoin in that same category? I suppose so. It is more or less in the same vein. Yeah, 4 hours looking good too. 4 moved to 235. I like that, and I like this chart as long as it's above 229. This is short term, medium term bullish. Looks good. Hard to hate. Okay, so let's go back to Bitcoin. Let's look at the ranges here. I could obviously, from a probability standpoint, use 9,300 to the upside. However, I think that's obviously going to have a very high probability from this price point. What's more relevant to actual trading right now is going to be this 8950-ish region 9,000 on a daily close to the downside, or a 4-hour closure below about 8950, 80 or 8900. Let me see exactly where that was. Yeah, about 8950 actually. A few bucks lower than that, to be exact. But I'd really be using a daily or a 12-hour for something like this. And assuming that we do get a closure on a 4-hour above 9,300, especially, or even a 2-hour closure above there, I'd be looking for an extension to a little bit above 9,500, and that's where things get interesting once again. So let's see, where's my chart at? Chart, sir, where'd you go, motherfucker? There it is. Found it. Motherfucker. I'm trying to hold in my autistic rages right now. Very, 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 very hard. Okay. Okay. So on a closure for a daily, let's see. What is the probability that we close below 900? How about one more zero, Mountain? Fucking bully myself. 21.25% chance to close to the downside, or below 9,000, initiating that move towards which would be a very interesting close, just because it would initiate that move towards about 8,500, somewhere around the 200x Benjamin average right here on the daily, and also our last major low, and very likely setting up for a move down to 8,100ish region. So still showing a relatively high probability. To the upside, 19% above 9,500. Now, the relevancy of closing above 9,500, though, not as significant to the downside, at least for just 9,500, but would very much imply a move back up towards, at the very least, 9,800, very likely 9,900 to 10,000-ish region, which then again, you have the same thing as we've been kind of doing for like the last couple months, in the sense that, all right, we're closer to the upside breakout now. Can we get excited just yet? I would like to see confirmations. As that seemed to have kept it mostly safe, except for this little stint right here. But that's why I don't trade over the weekends, to the upside and downside. But for right now, if that did happen, I would look for a quick move at the very least to 10.4. What does it say right here? About 10.4, yeah. Probably a short-term pullback from there, but ultimately, measure move still very much valid, all the way up to about 11,000 bucks, which would imply a higher high above this high right here. Which, at that point, there's probably gonna be some short-term ups and downs, but realistically, from the higher-term time frame perspective, it very likely would get a free ride to 11,500 at that point. That is the most recent gap. Not the most recent gap, but the most relative gap to where CMEs are last shown right here on August 11th, 2019. Still in that region, also correlating with a nice high value node as well. Relatively speaking to what we're looking at right now, or what we would be looking at at that level. More importantly, it just, as you can see, absolutely falls off the fucking face of the earth above there. So it's denoting that we do have a change behavior on the macro scale above there. And you can even see that above where we kind of currently are right now on a closing basis on this consolidation, which is actually showing 9,800 on a weekly closing basis. Do have a change of behavior once again. So, am I slowly starting to shift back around to having a bullishly biased boner? Yeah, I still need to see levels broken here, though. And again, I don't trade my biased boner. I trade technical analysis. As you can see, my biased boner, it gets excited all the time, in a range like this. But the levels are the documentable thing, and more importantly, they are something that can be standardized upon for an actual trading plan. As well, you always need something, something to manage risk off of, something to manage positions off of, and something to manage entries off of, at the very basis of any successful plan. So still looking at that, man. Other than that, I think it's time for me to sign off. I guess we can quickly go over the range just one more time. Closure above 9,300 on a 2-hour, 4-hour very likely catalyzes move back up towards a little bit above 9,500-ish region. I'd be looking for a test into this blue box right here. Probably a short-term pullback from there. But if we do get a closure above, I'd look for extension all the way up to 9,900, or yeah, about 9,900, give or take a few bucks from there. Does not imply a breakout to the upside, but would imply that the overall structure is looking a lot more healthy long-term. And it's better to be erring on the side of the boo laws, I suppose, as those higher lows on the 2-day and above charts keep maintaining themselves. So fair enough, do have to respect that, as the 2-day healthily bouncing off of the 55 and the 200 right here, which are actually about to have a nice bullish cross on the next closure coming in tonight. Well, maybe one more after that. We'll see where we are. Anyways, that's going to do it for right now. I want to wish you well once again. Take care, and until next time.